Tang Xia moved down the English vocabulary handbook for the college entrance examination in her hand, revealing a pair of round eyes. The male was wearing the same school uniform as her, and was also holding the green vocabulary booklet that every middle school student hated. His slender body swayed rhythmically with the driving of the bus. Tang Xia bit her lower lip hard. Absolutely read it right, it really is Han Yu from Class 3, the male god. Tang Xia lowered her eyes, not daring to stare for a long time, but still couldn't help but look at it secretly. It was already winter, and it was very cold at 6:30 in the morning. Han Yu probably waited at the station for a while, his nose was red, and compared with his fair skin, it was a bit cute. Tang Xia peeked quietly, and felt that the male god's appearance of reciting the book seriously now was as handsome as when he was playing basketball before. Sure enough, good looking is attractive in everything, even the posture of endorsing the book is not comparable to ordinary people like them, it is absolutely fatally attractive. Tang Xia hid behind the vocabulary manual, held back her joy, waited until she was standing, and carefully followed Han Yu out of the car. The male is 1.8 meters tall, the captain of the school's basketball team, and won an MVP in the last city-level competition, and the school's forums exploded. Tang Xia remembers a post with an astonishing amount of replies, and the title reads like this: "Xinje girl has completely fallen, did you make Han Nanshan?" Tang Xia also left a message. The sophomore senior sister said that the number of rivals in love has increased, and the brain hurts. When the green light at the intersection changed, Tang Xia held the book and pretended to recite with her head down, glancing ahead from time to time from the corner of her eye. The male had already put away the glossary manual at some point, with both hands in his trouser pockets casually, staring at the traffic lights boredly. It's obviously a dark grey school uniform so ugly that weeping, why does Han Yu look so good in it, but she is so ugly? Tang Xia thought silently, does the male know how popular he is? She followed Han Yu all the way until she entered the school gate and greeted the teacher on duty, only to find that Han Yu had already gone up the stairs when she looked up. Oh, the male god's rebellious period is different from her pseudo-student domineering pseudo-good girl who sees her teacher like a rat. Tang Xia sighed. There are 10 classes in the second year of high school, 5 classes are on the second floor, and 5 classes are on the ground floor. Han Yu was in class 3, and she was in class 10, the place closest to the canteen. After entering high school for a year and a half, worshipping male gods for a year, the first encounter ended like this. Tang Xia felt a little pity, and entered the classroom with her school bag on her back. What's even more pity is that she only now knows that the male gods community is next door to hers. You can still ride the same bus. Never met before. While Tang Xia blamed herself, an unbearable excitement rose from the bottom of her heart. Will the male always take that bus from now on? Is her spring coming? Tang Xia was a little dizzy, and sat down on her seat with a smile on her face. The English teacher on the podium cast a strange look. Then next time, she must seize the opportunity, or at least get to know each other a little bit. Hurry up and hand in your homework, put away the vocabulary manual, and I'm going to hand out dictation papers. The English teacher is a strict middle-aged woman, who writes dictation on time every morning, and supervises the dictation at noon. Coincidentally, the English teacher leads 2 classes, except for class 10, the other is class 3 where the male is. Tang Xia was startled, and originally wanted to take the opportunity to take another look, but now it's all right, he can already foresee himself in today's Zhongmo Brigade. The first half of the second year of high school is coming to an end, and the teachers in each class are trying their best to increase the homework for the students. On the one hand, it is for the final exam, and on the other hand, it can be regarded as preparation for the division of subjects in the next semester. The first Chinese science subject starts from the second half of the second semester of the second year of high school, that is to say, in another month, the classmates will be separated. After a dull morning, Tang Xia and his table mate Tao Jiakai finished their lunch, and just after talking for a while, the English teacher came in on high heels. The class representative handed out the dictation paper. As an old rule, there is no need to repeat the dictation if you get a score of 95 or more. Tang Xia subconsciously squeezed Tao Jiakai's hand under the table. Jiakai, I think I'm going to be done for today. Are you worried about dictation? Tao Jiakai grimaced. You got it, dictating 100 points every day, from freshman to sophomore. How many times have you been silent? You can count it with one hand, right? As soon as the words were finished, the sharp eyes of the English teacher swept over. Tang Xia, what's the matter with you today? You only got 85 points in silent writing, and you didn't memorize it last night. The teacher criticized by name, and the whole class was shocked. Tang Xia is not considered a top student, but a typical good student who doesn't play games, doesn't carry a mobile phone, doesn't sleep and get out of class, and doesn't make noise after class. She is good at liberal arts, especially in English, and the teacher has always liked her. Tang Xia lowered her head in shame. After the class representative handed out the dictation paper, Tang Xia drooped her head, followed a group of laughing boys with a pen and paper, and went to the teacher's office for an embarrassing silence. Tang Xia, Fu Han, who has a good relationship with her, teased, You don't memorize English, do you? Almost most of the boys in the class never memorize English. They prefer to copy the wrong questions several times, and then memorize the answers on the dictation paper. I recited it, Tang Xia said dejectedly, it's just that I didn't review it again in the morning, so I forgot it all. She stared at the male god. How could she have time to read words? Fu Han laughed, and patted her on the shoulder in a happy mood. It's okay, you are welcome to join the silent writing army. Finally, there are female soldiers. Tang Xia glared at him viciously. Pushing open the door and entering the teacher's office, an air conditioning heating mixed with a strong smell of carbon dioxide hits the face. Tang Xia squeezed through the crowd and handed over the dictation paper tremblingly. Teacher, let me repeat the silence. The English teacher was correcting yesterday's weekly exam paper. Hearing this, he glanced at Tang Xia's dictation paper and said, Copy 5 times by mistake, and write dictation again. Tang Xia choked, turned around and slipped out in embarrassment. She remembered the last time she was silent, she only had to copy it 3 times. Prices soared, and even the fines for copying began to double. Fu Han and the others are familiar with the way, and they have already copied it in the office. Lie on the wall, lean against the cabinet, and borrow each other's shoulders for support. Tang Xia looked around and was full of boys, so she felt embarrassed, so she simply opened the door and went out, wanting to borrow the windowsill of the office. I didn't expect that the windowsills were also overcrowded. Tang Xia pursed her lips, and put the dictation paper on the edge of the balcony in the corridor. The northwest wind blew loudly, cutting people's faces like knives. Before Tang Xia could write a few words, her hands were already frozen, and her fingertips felt as if they were being pricked by needles. She put down the pen, squeezed her fist, and put it to her mouth to breathe. Suddenly, someone gasped in a low voice, and small voices of discussion gradually arose. Tang Xia felt the shadow approaching beside her. She turned her head subconsciously, her eyes glanced, she was dumbfounded. This boy with the most beautiful side profile in the world, casually put the dictation paper on the balcony, and the nib of the black fountain pen filled the wild and unruly handwriting, which was shocking. He lowered his head slightly, and his soft black hair was blown by the wind with a rebellious taste. Tang Xia was stunned. He pursed his lips, and there was a slight dimple on the side of his lips, which seemed to be curled up, cool and peaceful. Tang Xia's eyes shifted. His fingers are slender and fair, with well-defined knuckles and clean nails, completely different from other boys who love to play basketball. She is both face control and hand control. The male god's hands are so beautiful, Tang Xia really can't bear it. She was stunned for a few seconds, and when she regained her senses, she swallowed and turned her head away. That bright red 45 points. Tang Xia secretly lowered her head, raised her feet to look at the solace of her shoes. It's strange, I didn't step on dog when I went out, how could I be so lucky today? She took a deep breath, collected herself, and continued to copy the words without showing any traces on her face. Classmate. Tang Xia's hand holding the pen froze. Calls me. She is slow to heat up, and she will be shy when talking to strangers, which is a typical little girl's temperament. Even if she worships Han Yu, at most it is just a beautiful vision that every girl has in adolescence, without any other emotions mixed in. After all, she wants to study hard. Han Yu had finished copying the words, and stared at Tang Xia seriously. The warm sun at noon in winter was dazzling behind him, the young man's face was hidden in the backlight, and his whole body seemed to be plated with gold, blurry and dreamy. But the silhouette is delicate and sparkling. Tang Xia felt that his voice was really nice. Yes. Han Yu leaned closer, his eyes seemed to be thick with ink, and it was difficult to see the bottom. Tang Xia stammered when she was nervous, what's wrong? Han Yu shook the dictation paper in his hand, and said in a low voice, wait a minute, show me. She just fell into his deep eyes. Half an hour later. Tang Xia opened the door of the office, and the unique coldness outside the door made her shiver. The coolness invades the senses presumptuously, but it smells much better than the carbon dioxide in the room. Thank you. Han Yu followed behind her, and when he closed the door with his backhand, he said in a relaxed tone. Tang Xia waved her hand, it's okay. She didn't know how to chat with boys, let alone how to chat with male gods, and she was too embarrassed to lift her head after saying those 3 words. I'll treat you to a drink another day. Han Yu's eyebrows and eyes were curved, engraved with a different kind of elegance, with a gentle arc. Tang Xia was startled. At that time, inviting someone to drink was equivalent to an invitation of I want to be friends with you. No. Tang Xia not only stutters when she is nervous, but also speaks without thinking when she is nervous. While thinking about the male taking the initiative to talk to her, she simply refused the male god's drink. Han Yu was a little taken aback. He hasn't been turned down yet. Oh, Han Yu frowned, and there seemed to be a slight displeasure between his brows, then we will cooperate again next time. Tang Xia pursed her lips, forced a smile and said I shouldn't be silent again. Han Yu hee-heed twice, turned and left. Tang Xia stood there for a minute, watching Han Yu's back disappear from the stairs, feeling that the world above her head had collapsed. I rely on. What did I just say? Tang Xia covered her face, wanting to cry but no tears. The male must think she is very pretentious. That afternoon, Tang Xia propped her chin and was in a daze for the whole class. She even had a crazy idea. The male doesn't seem to speak English very well. Okay. Then, should she stop reciting words in the future? Go to silence every day? Tang Xia's absurd idea startled herself. Obediently. She has always been a well-behaved student, how could she have such a terrible idea? Tang Xia shook her head violently, actively killing the budding evil thoughts. She was in a good mood that day, and she invited her table mate Tao Jiakai and her buddy Yu Man to eat roasted corn after school. On winter evenings, there is a long queue of fast food trucks across the street from number 1 middle school. The school lunch is not good, and the canteen sells the same snacks day after day, and everyone will get tired of it. Therefore, the peddler who knows how to do business targeted a middle school student who had been hungry all day. Grilled sweet potato and grilled corn skewers, fried rice noodles with meat and rice noodles, 10 meters away from the school gate. The rising breath stimulates the taste buds, as if brewing a gluttonous feast. Tang Xia doesn't eat these things very much. Although she would feel greedy every time she smells them after school, she always feels a little dirty. But today was different, she was happy, invited friends to eat, and tasted it herself. Be careful on the road, let's go. Yu Man waved to her, Tang Xia blew a kiss back, and waited for the number 17 bus at the station as usual. She is a day student and does not live in a dormitory. Her home is very close to the school, and the distance by bus is less than 10 minutes. Tang Xia has become accustomed to a 6:06 schedule, and with the light of street lamps and station signs, in the bleak atmosphere of winter, waiting for the bus to end the tension and fatigue of a day of school. Tang Xia was not disappointed that he didn't meet Han Yu when he returned home. The end time of each class is different, maybe the mail has already left. Leaning against the car window, she watched the continuous flow of traffic outside the window, and the dim street lights reflected colorful halos on the hurried passers-by, which was a unique scene in the night. Get off the car, enter the community. Tang Xia went upstairs within a few minutes. The corridor was dark, and the voice-activated sensor lights were not sensitive. She stomped the soles of her feet so that the voice-activated lights on the third floor turned on. Taking out the key from the school bag to open the door, Tang Xia habitually shouted, "I'm back." She turned on the light and quickly closed the door with one hand. The living room is bright. But in fact, there is no one at home. Tang Xia's father is a university professor, and it is rare for him to come home in the middle of the week. Tang Xia also has a brother who is 2 years older than her. This year his brother went to other provinces to study, and he usually doesn't come back except for holidays. Tang Xia's mother passed away unexpectedly when she was in elementary school. Therefore, when her peers come home from school and feel the caresses of their parents, she has to take out fast food and find a way to solve dinner by herself. In this regard, Tang Xia has always felt that she is relatively independent. She studies hard and has strong self-discipline. Even in the important high school stage, her father is very relieved. The only concern is her safety. So Tang Xia would yell loudly no matter whether there was anyone in the family or not. Emboldened. After simply eating a bowl of noodles, Tang Xia went into the bedroom, turned on the chandelier, then the desk lamp, and turned over the homework. The boring night of high school students tends to calm down among the exercises and test papers. The hour hand pointed to 11. Tang Xia stretched her waist and stretched her sore neck. Almost done. There are still a few problems in physics that I can't solve, so I can ask Swiba to copy them tomorrow morning. Her physics? It really sucks. Tang Xia tidied up the desk, took the vocabulary booklet and prepared to memorize words. She also has the common faults that all students have. Is copying homework something that so-called poor students will do? Of course not. Top students can do it too. Moreover, Tang Xia disagreed with the distinction between good and bad students. It seems that she is a top student in the eyes of the teacher. But she also has a good relationship with the bad student in the teacher's mouth. Good and bad are not so clear-cut. Good or bad should not be measured by grades. This is a truth that everyone understands, and it is also clearly emphasized in the compulsory education law. But it seems that the teachers have forgotten it. Tang Xia is a girl who is obedient on the outside, but has a little arrogance on the inside. It's just that her arrogance is never easily shown to others. Midnight is the best time for thoughts to fly, and it is also the easiest time for people to enjoy the rare comfort and tranquility. It took Tang Xia 15 minutes to recite the words, took a comfortable hot shower, and fell asleep under the covers. The next day, she woke up early, bought 2 steamed buns at the breakfast stall at the gate of the community, and took the bus 20 minutes earlier than usual to go to school. Early bird gets the worm. Students who get up early will not be caught by the teacher for copying their homework. No way, no way. The car drove past the station where I met Han Yu yesterday, and went all the way without stopping. Tang Xia thought, I'm early today, and the mail might sit in the next class. When she entered the school gate, the teachers on duty hadn't arrived yet. It's really early enough. Tang Xia muttered to himself, and only after entering the classroom did he realize that she was not the only one who wanted to copy homework. About 7 or 8 students from the class came, except for Gu Qing, the representative of the physics class. Everyone else crowded their heads together, writing hard. Gu Qing, lend me your homework. Tang Xia and Gu Qing have a good relationship. The latter is carefree, with a boyish personality, informal and generous. Here you are, Gu Qingfei brought over the workbook, don't copy the last big question, I'm not sure. Tang Xia made an okay gesture. She just likes Gu Qing's temper, she won't just stare at her classmates and make small reports all day long just because she is a class representative. On the contrary, Gu Qing borrowed the most from her to copy physics homework. When Tang Xia finished copying and took out the vocabulary booklet refreshedly to start consolidating vocabulary, the class finally became bustling. The morning of the second grade is the noisiest in the whole school. They are different from the third year of high school, with heavy academic and college entrance examination pressure. They are also different from the first year of high school, and they are still timid towards the teachers and cadres. The second year of high school is the most presumptuous, daring to flirt with the junior high school girls, dare to call the senior high school seniors brothers and sisters, and dare to talk glibly in front of the class teacher. Even dare to smoke and fight at school. Hey, did any of you see the confession yesterday? Confession? Tang Xia turned her head curiously. Pei Xiao is a well-known trumpet in the class, mastering all kinds of gossip in the school. Tang Xia couldn't help laughing when she saw the excited red light on her face. What confession? Tang Xia was not the only one who was curious. As soon as Pei Xiao said this, the people who were busy copying and handing in their homework stopped and all turned their attention to Pei Xiao. Pei Xiao cast a mysterious glance at the door. The teacher isn't here, tell me. Su Yao, who was sitting in the first row of the first group, urged. Pei Xiao cleared her throat, ahem. She said in a serious manner, lowering her voice, it's just that a girl confessed to Han Yu. Tang Xia was taken aback, male god? I rely on it. Fu Han's reaction was bigger than that of a girl, and he slammed the homework book on the table with a slap. Who is that girl? You are brave enough. There was an instant explosion in the class, shocking, unexpected, admiring, envious, all kinds of things. Tao Jiakai grabbed Tang Xia's arm and shook it wildly. Ah, Tang Xia! The male is coveted. Pei Xiao frowned. Hey, I haven't finished talking yet, she pretended to be displeased, and then said mysteriously, I heard it's a girl from the first year of high school, who blocked the door of the third class after school yesterday, on the second floor. Everyone who didn't leave saw it. Tang Xia took a deep breath and couldn't help but uttered two words awesome. Han Yu is a male god, that's right. It's true that girls who like Han Yu occupy half the sky in the school. But there was no girl who dared to confess her love to Han Yu, at least before yesterday. What was the reason, Tang Xia didn't know very well, but it was said that there was a senior high school senior upstairs who liked Han Yu. That senior sister is an asshole, and she can't be provoked. It's fine for ordinary people to have a crush on her, and it's fine if she doesn't make a fool of herself. There is also a rumor that Han Yu is more romantic, not serious, and likes to flirt with girls when he has nothing to do. Such a boy would not be willing to fall in love seriously and restrain himself. Tang Xia didn't know which statement was true. However, there used to be a classic quote by Han Yu on the school forum, which lasted for a long time. God said there is no way to keep the flies away, but forcing me to eat flies is too disgusting. The meaning is self-evident. You can have a crush on me, but don't confess your love, I'll vomit. He compared the flowery suitors to flies, expressing his helplessness as the pursued. Tang Xia laughed when she saw this sentence, but she didn't expect that she was actually a fly. It's just not that annoying. Are all freshmen in high school so aggressive now? A boy sighed, with a hint of sadness in his tone. He's just chasing Han Yuman, Fu Han said unceremoniously, look at it, the girls in our class have learned a little bit, if you have love, you have to boldly chase after him. Go to hell. Gu Qing, who was sitting in the front row of Fu Han, turned around and gave him a dunk, which made the whole class burst into laughter. Tang Xia also laughed, and met Gu Qing's eyes, seeing the shyness in the latter's eyes. "It's so noisy early in the morning, what are you talking about?" The English teacher pushed the black-rimmed glasses on the bridge of his nose, and threw a stack of dictation papers heavily on the podium. He was so shocked that the class that was like a vegetable market a second ago was suddenly silent. Chinese, mathematics, and English were taken in turns, and it was hard to make it to the last exercise class in the morning. The boys cheered, threw away the practice papers in their hands, and went to the playground with their shoulders crossed. "Tang Xia, do you want to go?" Yu Man yelled at the door after coming back from the toilet. "Right now." Tang Xia tidied up her desk, took her meal card, and put her arm around Yu Man with a smile on her face. "The physical exercise class on Wednesday morning is a big grade class. 10 classes attend together. Looking from the teaching building, the playground is dark and full of heads. This should be the favorite class of girls in all grades." Tang Xia thought. After all, this is the only chance to have a class with the male god. In the physical exercise class, as usual, warm up first, and then line up and jog for 2 laps according to the order of the class. After running, disband and move freely. Boys will scramble to grab the basketball and the court, while the girls will walk leisurely, in groups of 3 or 5, or walk around the playground, or sit in a corner of the gymnasium and whisper. But more, standing on the edge of the basketball court, watching the boy with his own radiance, take off his heavy winter clothes, soaring youthful, in the exclamation of the young girl in the blooming season, draw a strong and bright arc after another. The sun was very warm today. Tang Xia, Yu Man, Tao Jiakai and Gu Qing were sitting on the side steps of the rostrum, facing the outdoor basketball court. There was a lot of people there, and the handsome boys who played basketball clapped their hands from time to time to celebrate, which dazzled the eyes of the girls watching. "Gu Qing, do you want to hear the breaking news?" The small speaker Pei Xiao appeared out of nowhere, and squatted in front of the 4 people. Gu Qing looked at her suspiciously. The latter shook his head and said with a narrow smile, "It's about Han Yu." Gu Qing blushed instantly. Tang Xia and Yu Man looked at each other, giggling. They all regard Han Yu as a male god, but Gu Qing is the only one who takes it too seriously. Tang Xia could see that Gu Qing's fascination and admiration for Han Yu was different from theirs. That might really be called, like, right? Let's hear it. Tang Xia and Pei Xiao sat down, her eyes sparkling. Pei Xiao coughed twice again like an old professor, and then said, "Didn't it mean that someone confessed to Han Yu yesterday? I went to ask the class 3, that girl is Chu Sisi, the school committee member of class 1 and 1, looks like quite gorgeous." The whole morning class was tense, and there was no time to discuss the gossip in the morning, but Pei Xiao was overwhelmed. Tang Xia said "Oh," nodded and said, "This name is familiar. Top student, she entered the freshman year of high school last year, and she spoke at the flag-raising ceremony." Pei Xiao explained. Tang Xia understood. "And then? Did Han Yu agree?" Gu Qing asked. Pei Xiao glanced at her ambiguously, and joked, "Are you nervous? Are you afraid that the male will run away? Fuck you." Gu Qing glared angrily, her side cheeks were slightly pink. "Is it so easy to get a male god?" Pei Xiao looked sorry for Chu Sisi. It's a pity, no matter how beautiful the girl is, no matter how good her academic performance is, she won't be able to catch the male god's eyes." Yu Man and Tao Jiakai were rolling with laughter. "Gu Qing, are you relieved now?" Tang Xia teased, "The male is still there, we still have a chance to look up to him." Gu Qing didn't answer, but asked curiously after a while, "Why did Han Yu refuse?" Pei Xiao shrugged, "I didn't say anything about it. It was already a while after school and I didn't see many people, but I heard that Han Yu's face was not very good looking and smelly." Tang Xia bumped Gu Qing with her shoulder, "Hey!" Gu Qing seemed to be thinking about something. What? She hummed. If you like it, go after it. Tang Xia bit her finger and smiled maliciously. Pucci Yu Man didn't hold back, and fell into Tang Xia's arms, overjoyed. Gu Qing's cheeks were instantly blush. Tang Xia, you haven't learned well recently. Gu Qing was ashamed and annoyed, and stretched out her hand to tickle Tang Xia. The four girls rolled together, and under the warm and clear sky that winter, they had the most brilliant faces. And the heartiest laugh. Okay, stop making trouble, Tang Xia begged for mercy. I know you don't fall in love in high school, right? Gu Qingmei stared at her, then turned to the side. There, Han Yu completed a pass in tacit cooperation with his teammates, and his handsome smile spread out against the wind, hitting Gu Qing's heart hard. Go shopping, my hurts from sitting. Yu Man shook Tang Xia's hand. Are you going? Tang Xia got up and asked the other three girls. No, Tao Jiakai looked at his watch. We still have 10 minutes to gather. I'll wait for you here, and have dinner together after class. Tang Xia nodded, okay. There are also girls hanging out in 2s and 3s on the playground, not only to pass the time, but also to be alone among girlfriends. Whisper. Tang Xia has many good friends, but only one best friend, Yu Man. Tang Xia, Yu Man hugged him, frowning puzzledly. You said that a capable and powerful sister like Gu Qing, how can she be infatuated with Han Yu like a little girl? Tang Xia thought for a while, and said, handsome guys can be eaten by the whole universe, do you understand? Yu Man rolled her eyes. Actually, I don't think Han Yu is so handsome, she said with a chuckle, her eyes glowing. I like Qin Yuan from class 6. Tang Xia glanced at her, the one who is famous for fighting. What, you don't even know how handsome he is in fighting, just hum ha ha and punch him twice, and that man will lie on the ground. Speaking of Qin Yuan, Yu Man danced with excitement. Tang Xia also saw that fight, in the laboratory building. The exact cause was unclear, but she remembered that the boy named Qin Yuan was smoking a cigarette skillfully at that time, and there was an indelible hostility between his brows. Tang Xia doesn't like this type of boy, but she doesn't want to hurt Yu Man. Yes, handsomer than Han Yu, he is much handsomer than Han Yu, okay. Han Yu, who was about to shoot at the free throw line, sneezed unexpectedly. The teenager frowned, aimed at the basket, bent his knees, took off, and flipped his wrist lightly. The basketball cut a perfect parabola, and with the sound of the girl gasping, it hit the backboard heavily. Avoided the basket. Ah, there was a tidy sound of regret. Damn! Han Yu scolded in a low voice. The boys in class 3 struggled to grab the rebound, and the boys in class 2 were not to be outdone. The orange basketball was jumping at everyone's fingertips. Some boys gritted their teeth and slammed their palms vigorously. The basketball finally, by coincidence, crossed the green iron nets around the basketball court and landed on the playground. Hey, classmate, help me pick it up. All the members of Class 3 ran back to the iron fence and shouted at Tang Xia and Yu Man who were wandering around. Tang Xia reacted slowly, and Yu Man took her hand over, only to realize in shock. I rely on. There is a male god. Student, do me a favor and throw the ball in. Chi Hui smiled and spoke very politely. Tang Xia nodded, picked up the basketball, and looked up at the iron net. Visually estimated to be 3 meters high. Tang Xia had a very bad premonition. She's going to make a fool of herself. Thank you, classmate, the two girls approached and greeted loudly, just throw it over. Tang Xia pursed her lips, took 2 steps back, and jumped vigorously. The basketball hit the iron net with a bang, making an uncomfortable impact. Then Tang Xia blushed and ran after the bounced ball. The crowd of onlookers laughed without any malice. Tang Xia picked up the ball annoyed, and turned around to find that Yu Man was also smiling. Unkind. Bad friend. She scratched her head, clenched her teeth tightly, and jumped up again, unwilling to admit defeat. Kong dang, the impact is louder. The rebounding basketball rolls farther. This time even Chi Hui didn't hold back, lying on the iron net and laughing. Go out and pick it up. Han Yu came over and kicked Chi back softly. It's almost time to gather, just go back to the equipment room. Tang Xia and Han Yu were separated by a net, and it was obvious that he could see the mocking smile on the corner of the latter's mouth. So embarrassing. Tang Xia didn't wait for Chi Hui to come out, put the ball aside, and dragged Yu Man away. The teacher assembled the whole team and let them go to dinner a few minutes earlier. In a week, only today's dishes can be chosen at will. Tao Jiakai was in the queue, feeling happy. The teachers in class 10 have the problem of procrastinating. Every time they go to the cafeteria after class, there are not many dishes, so they can only make do with some food and soup, which is bitter. This is not the worst. The worst part is that there are no seats. Last week, Tang Xia and Yu Man were eating in the corridor with dinner plates, mixed with the howling wind and the pattering rain. It was desolate. Girls love to chat and chirp when they eat, and the whole cafeteria is filled with buzzing noises. Halfway through eating, Pei Xiao suddenly hurried over. Big news, big news! Tang Xia watched Pei Xiao's excited saliva flying into her food. Why are you so surprised? Yu Man asked, biting her chopsticks. Pei Xiao pulled Gu Qing up with one hand, Tao Jiakai up with the other, and directly pulled the two of them up from their seats. Zhao Huan, a junior in high school, taught Chu Sisi a lesson in the women's toilet on the third floor. Don't eat it, I'll take you to see it. Hey! Yu Man was taken aback. Ah, what? Quickly put the dinner plate away, and follow me. Pei Xiao looked anxious, wishing she had 4 hands, and dragging each one away. You go first, the two of us will come right away. Tang Xia threw the chopsticks on the dinner plate and kicked Yu Man under the table. Don't eat, she took the plate left behind by Gu Qing, help Jiakai clean it up, hurry up. Oh! Yu Man took a sip of soup, and quickly followed Tang Xia's pace. When the two rushed to the third floor of the teaching building, people from the third floor and the third floor outside the toilet door were already surrounded. With sharp eyes, Yu Man pulled Tang Xia to squeeze beside Pei Xiao and the others. What's going on? Tang Xia was not tall, only 1.6 meters, so she couldn't see clearly what was going on inside. Go back and talk about it, Pei Xiao said in a low voice. I think it's a bit scary. Tang Xia was slightly taken aback, and only then did she notice that Pei Xiao, who had always been bluffing, had an extraordinarily serious expression on his face. There's even a little, horror. Looking at Gu Qing and Tao Jiakai beside them, they also had ugly faces. Tang Xia couldn't help but clenched Yu Man's hand, pursed her lips and squeezed it in. Before seeing the scene clearly, the voice entered Tang Xia's ears first. Tell me, how did you confess your love to Han Yu yesterday? It was an extremely charming female voice. The speaker's tone was lazy, but one could still hear the thick sneer mixed in it. Han Yu, I like you so much. Han Yu, I love you so much. Han Yu, I want to be your girlfriend. The other girl said sweetly in a deliberately soft tone, causing a burst of ironic laughter. Tang Xia followed the prestige and took a sharp breath. There were 4 girls in the women's room, 3 of them were tall and delicate looking, and they were still wearing thin autumn school uniforms in the winter. The first one wears earrings, fair skin, and beautiful, long hair shawl. Tang Xia knew her, she was the eldest sister in the 3rd year of high school, her name was Zhao Huan. This Zhao Huan is quite well known in number 1 middle school. She is easygoing and courageous. All grades, male or female, have to give her face. Standing beside Zhao Huan were 2 girls, with strands of hair highlighted and dyed, lipstick on, and chewing gum, playing with brightly colored nails boredly at the moment. Number 1 middle school is a key middle school, and students are explicitly prohibited from dyeing or perming their hair, making up, etc. But the rebellious teenagers and girls at that time always liked to deliberately go against the school, do things that are unique, and be different people. As if becoming an alternative and attracting attention will make them feel especially proud. Where did you get the confidence to go and confess to Han Yu? Zhao Huan crossed his arms, leaning against the sink, his eyes were a little cold. On the other side of her, Chu Sisi shrinks back, not daring to speak. Tang Xia suddenly felt a little depressed. She had seen that girl in the first year of high school several times. She had a playful ponytail in her impression, her face was plain, white and tender, and she was very cute. But now, her hair is messy, her face and body are still wet, and she doesn't know what kind of bullying she suffered before. Hey, are you still crying? Zhao Huan was most annoyed that people didn't answer her words, and when he saw Chu Sisi's eyes were red, he got angry. She took 2 steps forward, and the frightened girl subconsciously stepped back. Zhao Huan laughed and slapped Chu Sisi with his hands. Snapped. The voice was so crisp that Tang Xia couldn't help but close her eyes. Chu Sisi didn't hide, she gritted her teeth and accepted the slap. Tears flowed down her already red and swollen cheeks, but she didn't dare to make a sound of crying. Tang Xia's heart was beating wildly, and it seemed like something was about to burst out of her chest. She watched with her own eyes, a girl grabbed Chu Sisi by the hair, dragged her to the mirror at the sink, then patted her face like a pet, and said, "How beautiful, Han Yu saw you will be amazed when you look like this, right?" Zhao Huan sneered, picked up the drink that was put aside, unscrewed the cap of the bottle and held it over Chu Sisi's head, and poured it expressionlessly. The crowd of onlookers let out a low cry that was extremely suppressed. Chu Sisi closed her eyes, her tears mixed with orange juice and kept flowing down. "Wash it for you, otherwise Han Yu will be disgusted if he sees it," Zhao Huan said coolly. The other 2 girls smiled openly. "Come on, fix your bangs so they don't get messed up." The girl chewing gum took out a tissue from her bag, wrapped her carefully, and pinched the spit-out gum, sticking it on Chu Sisi's hair. Zhao Huan also took out a clean tissue, carefully wiped his fingertips that were accidentally stained with orange juice, like wiping the most exquisite porcelain, cherishing it. Tang Xia gasped violently. This was the first time she had witnessed school violence, not brutal or bloody, but enough to shock Tang Xia's psychology. She could no longer sit idly by. "I'll tell the teacher." Tang Xia frowned tightly, and whispered to Yu Man. Yu Man quickly covered her mouth and lowered her voice, "You're crazy. Leave it alone." "Over there," Zhao Huan laughed dryly, raised his voice, and said, "Who the is meddling in other people's business, you want to tell the teacher?" Tang Xia's heart trembled, but she didn't have the courage to look up. Gu Qing's face turned dark, and he moved in front of Tang Xia silently. At 1.7 meters tall, she barely blocked the pale-faced Tang Xia. Zhao Huan squinted, his gaze slowly passing by a group of people outside the door. "Have the guts to say it, but don't have the guts to do it." Tang Xia's pupils shrank fiercely, but Yu Man and Tao Jiakai held her arms at the same time, and the eyes they gave were full of worry and prayer. "Please, Tang Xia, don't stand out." Tang Xia couldn't raise or swallow the breath that was clogging her throat. Seeing that no one said anything, Zhao Huan pushed Chu Sisi with his backhand. "Chu Sisi!" She frowned, and leaned her delicate face in front of the terrified girl, taking a panoramic view of the girl's frightened appearance. "Why don't you tell me to die?" Chu Sisi tucked her hands into her sleeves and clenched into fists. "I remember this name." Zhao Huan straightened up, and went out first. "I will chat with you often in the future." The onlookers backed away instantly, automatically leaving a path for Zhao Huan and the 2 girls. Chu Sisi's legs gave way, and she leaned on the sink with her arms, trying to stand still. Zhao Huan stroked his long hair, and when he raised his head, his eyes shone slightly. "Hi!" She smiled, and the ruthlessness that she taught others a minute ago disappeared. Everyone was stunned and looked in the direction Zhao Huan greeted. At some point, Han Yu stood at the end of the crowd. With one hand in his trouser pocket, and the zipper of his school uniform unzipped, he leaned casually and handsomely on his companion. What a coincidence! Han Yu gave Zhao Huan some face and responded lightly. After speaking, he stepped up, trying to pass through the crowd. Tang Xia turned her head to look at Chu Sisi in the women's toilet, and then at Han Yu who was about to pass by the door. This incident happened because of him. If Han Yu could say a word for Chu Sisi, Zhao Huan would not make things difficult for her anymore. Tang Xiaxi stopped, raised her head, and looked at Han Yu anxiously and expectantly. The boy who was getting closer and closer. And Chu Sisi also heard Han Yu's voice. She seemed to have found a life-saving straw at once. Her steps were heavy, but she hurriedly moved to the door of the toilet. She was so embarrassed. And really poor. Near. Tang Xia felt nervous for no reason. He should solve this matter, right? Tang Xia grabbed Yu Man's hand. Next moment, Han Yu walked past Tang Xia. Did not stay for half a minute. For the next 2 days, Tang Xia didn't meet Han Yu. When taking the bus, Tang Xia would think that if she saw him, she would muster up the courage to ask why don't you help a bunch of Chu Sisi. But Tang Xia didn't have this chance. It's even possible that she feels that she really has a chance, but she doesn't have enough courage. Due to the large number of onlookers at that time, the incident in the toilet was very loud, which alarmed the principal and the dean. Chu Sisi's parents rushed to the school the next day, demanding that the school severely punish the rioting students and compensate their precious daughter for mental damage. However, Chu Sisi gritted her teeth. Despite the persuasion of her parents and class teacher, she was still reluctant to name the person who bullied her. Maybe she knows that once Zhao Huan is shaken out, life will be even more difficult in the future. If the parties do not speak, the bystanders will of course remain silent. None of the students who witnessed the whole process that day dared to discuss anything, including Tang Xia and others. And this incident also became a thorn in Tang Xia's heart that pierced deeply into the flesh and blood. But there is no impenetrable wall in the world. Zhao Huan was finally posted a white notice, and asked him to stay in school for probation. I heard that Chu Sisi hadn't come to school for the past 2 days. The class monitor of Class 1 and 1 of senior high school organized the students to visit her. When they came back, they said that Chu Sisi was not in good condition. Tang Xia sighed, and copied the weekend homework on the blackboard into the memo. Some classes have already dismissed from school, and the corridors are noisy, filled with the joy of the coming weekend. Toilet incidents are only a small part of high school life. How small is it? Probably like the comparison between ants and elephants. They have seen it and discussed it in private, so this matter is considered to be over, and it has nothing to do with it. Everyone doesn't take it to heart. Including Zhao Huan. Including Han Yu. But some people will remember it for a lifetime. Such as Chu Sisi. For example, Tang Xia. You're so slow. Yu Man straightened her school bag, came over and patted Tang Xia on the shoulder. Hurry up, go to the gift shop. Tang Xia nodded and glanced at Gu Qing's seat. Is she gone? Yu Man shrugged. What kind of gift do you think Gu Qing would like? She probably won't want a doll, right? Next Friday is Gu Qing's birthday. Tang Xia and Yu Man made an appointment early, and today after class, they will go to the gift shop to pick up gifts. I can guarantee that if you give her a plush doll, you will be beaten. Tang Xia laughed. Yu Man beat her, I'll hit you first. Opposite number 1 middle school and across the intersection, there is a whole row of shops, with everything you need for food, drink, and clothing. The facade of the gift shop is small, but the girls at that time liked to go shopping after school, so the business was not bad. Tang Xia, what do you think of this? Yu Man hung a light pink scarf around his neck, it was the kind of plush and soft to the touch. Tang Xia frowned, you're too young, you might as well pick a grid. She pointed to the other side. Yu Man groaned twice and ignored her. Tang Xia continued to make up the knife. Don't talk about giving this to Gu Qing, I hate it if you give it to me. Yu Man glanced at the knife and came over. Tang Xia held back her laughter, turned around and took the gift she had already selected to pay the bill. Bookmark. Yu Man came over, glanced at it and replied with contempt, it's not as practical as mine. Tang Xia glared at her, Yeme bookmarks are very popular recently. TCH, how much is one piece? It's too stingy. I'll give you a set. Yu Man choked, watching Tang Xia pay the money and carry the exquisite gift bag. Aren't you going to pick it soon? Big money. Yu Man hugged Tang Xia violently, almost kissing him, please take care of me. Tang Xia pushed her, laughing uncontrollably, go away, my orientation is normal, stay away from me. After finally picking out gifts with Yu Man, when he was going out, two girls came in hidden. Tang Xia looked familiar, as if she was also a sophomore in high school. I heard that someone from class 10 is going to confess to Han Yu. Tang Xia held Yu Man's hand, and heard such a sentence unexpectedly. She was stunned, class 10? Looking back, the two girls had already entered the store, and the one walking behind was whispering it seems to be called Qing, I can't remember. Tang Xia chattered at Yu Man, did you hear that they said I won't wait for the car with you? Yu Man was sending text messages on her mobile phone with her head down, and said immediately, my dad asked me to go to Grandma's house for dinner tonight, so I have to go. Oh. Tang Xia was still thinking about what she heard just now, but being interrupted by Yu Man, she was a little unsure if she had heard it wrong. Class 10? Or Class 4? Green? Or Qin? Tang Xia frowned, said goodbye to Yu Man, and returned home with doubts. Are you back? Wash your hands and eat. When Tang Xia arrived home, Tang's Haihei had already prepared dinner. There was no class in the afternoon, so he came back early. Tang's Haihei is a middle-aged man with a scholarly temperament, wearing glasses and a suit, very refined. Father, Tang Xia put her school bag back into the bedroom, and when she came out, she helped wash the dishes in the kitchen. Brother, will you be back on New Year's Day? Last time I talked to him on the phone and said that I would come back if I could buy a ticket, Tang's Haihei replied with a smile, and finally asked, why, miss your brother? Tang Xia didn't nod or shake her head, she just said, I want him to help me make up for physics, next semester will be divided into subjects, and the head teacher hopes that I can choose physics. Tang's Haihei paused for a while as he wiped the desk, and said in confusion, Xiao Xia, you are good at liberal arts, why didn't you choose liberal arts? It will be difficult to get a job in the future. The teacher said that it is best to choose science. Tang's Haihei thought for a while, and said with a gentle tone, what about you? Do you like science? Tang Xia lowered her head and answered after a while, Father, if I do well in physics in the final exam this time, I will choose science, okay? She is not a very independent person, which can be seen from the fact that she likes liberal arts but prefers science instead. In fact, studying is really helpless. It doesn't matter if you study well and pass the exam. From the second year of high school, they have to consider the situation of entering the society in the future. The employment rate of liberal arts is not as good as that of science, the head teacher told her so frankly. Let's eat first. Tang's Haihei never interfered with his daughter's study, but that didn't mean he didn't care. When your brother comes back, ask him for his opinion. Yes. Tang Xia agreed. That weekend, she thought for a long time, and finally gritted her teeth and decided that no matter what her brother said when he came back, she would choose physics. There is still a year and a half to go, and Tang Xia doesn't believe that she can't overcome the problem of physics. On Monday, Tang Xia still didn't meet Han Yu on the 17th road. Maybe that was an accident? The home of the male is not nearby, maybe he just stayed at the house of relatives and friends. Tang Xia shrugged, probably because of the Chu Sisi incident, her worship of male gods seemed to have worn off a little bit. Not very disappointed. Monday morning is extremely busy, explaining weekend homework, analyzing weekly exam papers, and launching new courses. After finally surviving through lunch, Tang Xia lay down on the table tiredly, drowsy. However, there was no rest for a few minutes, and the noise gradually increased. Tang Xia raised her head in a daze, and several strange faces appeared in her sight. She was taken aback. Tang Xia sat in the second row, next to the window, and the aisle was outside the window. At noon, there were people going to the canteen. But there are too many people today. Through the window, she watched the students she didn't know stand at the door of the class, drinking drinks and whispering to each other. The chatter was not too loud, just enough for Tang Xia, who was nearest to the window, to hear. See, the woman on the right in the fourth row of the second group is Gu Qing. It looks average. That's not as good as Chu Sisi, she's pretty after all. She's in good shape. I think she is very courageous, bigger than Chu Sisi. That's right, Zhao Huan has made an example, yet she still dares to face difficulties. I admire you. Tang Xia was stunned. What kind of nonsense are you talking about? Rumors abound outside the classroom, and everyone has their own thoughts in the classroom. Pei Xiao has always been a trumpeter, but this time he was careful, trying to speak calmly. Gu Qing, you. She paused for a moment, trying to organize her words. They all said that you also ran to confess to Han Yu. Tang Xia gasped, stunned. She turned her head and asked Tao Jiakai in a low voice, what's the situation? It's only been 2 days, how can Gu Qing confess to Han Yu? It's ridiculous. Tao Jiakai was also full of confusion, and only pulled Tang Xia closer, signaling with his eyes. I don't know, but you can see for yourself. People outside have heard the news and came to our class to watch Gu Qing. It's hard to tell if it's true or not. Tang Xia secretly said, absolutely false. Last week they were still teasing Gu Qing on sports. She couldn't possibly fall in love in high school. Over there, Gu Qing didn't answer Pei Xiao's words. He just sorted out the textbooks to be used in the afternoon by himself, then glanced outside the classroom. There was a lot of voices. In a trance, she heard someone shouting outside, hey, Han Yu is here, this can't be true. Tang Xia saw Han Yu and several boys from class 3 passing by her class and went straight to the canteen. 5 minutes later, someone couldn't hold back their curiosity, and shouted at Han Yu who had just come out of the canteen, hey, Han Yu, what's going on with you and Gu Qing from class 10? Tang Xia cursed secretly, you must be sick. She turned her head to look at Gu Qing, who opened the exercise book, as if he was about to do homework, but he didn't write for a long time. Outside the window, Han Yu unscrewed the cap of the mineral water bottle, raised his head and took a sip, his Adam's apple rolled up and down on his white and slender neck. The girls onlookers let out a nympho-like scream. Gu Qing. Han Yu pursed his lips, stopped in front of the boy who asked the question, and raised his eyebrows slightly. Chi bumped his arm back, who is it? Here, that's the one. The boy raised his hand and pointed his fingers accurately into the glass window, 2 groups of 4 rows, Gu Qing with a high ponytail. Han Yu looked in the direction he pointed. There was a window between Tang Xia and Han Yu, and she clearly saw the young man gently placing the mineral water bottle on the windowsill, and then cast his gaze directly and sharply at Gu Qing. He watched it for a long time. Long too. Gu Qing went from being uncomfortable at first, to nervous, and then to blushing. Chi Hui leaned over, no way, you really. Han Yu didn't speak, but frowned, his expression unclear. The spectators gradually began to discuss, especially when Han Yu stared at Gu Qing, and Gu Qing couldn't help blushing. The discussion became louder. Tang Xia clearly heard someone say, why do I feel tricky? It's not because of Gu Qing that Han Yu rejected Chu Sisi. She suddenly panicked. Chu Cici's confession was rejected, and she was treated so horribly by Zhao Huan. What about Gu Qing? When Tang Xia thought about it, a dense layer of cold sweat broke out on his back in an instant. She was afraid that Gu Qing would be troubled by rumors, and she was even more afraid that Gu Qing would be troubled by Zhao Huan. So Tang Xia raised his head and clenched his fists. She was very close to Han Yu, so close that she could clearly see his deep eyes and lupin-like thick and beautiful eyelashes. Tang Xia gritted her teeth, stretched out her hand, and pulled down the curtain forcefully. Shua, the curtains in the classroom are raised and lowered. When she pulled it, she directly blocked dozens of eyes from outside. Han Yu was startled, and the mineral water bottle fell to the ground with a bang. Indoors, outdoors, the same dead silence. Tang Xia was still holding the drawstring in her hand, dumbfounded. After a while, Tao Jiakai tugged Tang Xia's sleeve lightly. Tang Xia, Han Yu, is in front. Tang Xia was startled, and her consciousness returned to her brain. She turned her head, almost biting her tongue in fright. Han Yu didn't know when he was standing at the front door of the class, half of his body was leaning in, his eyes were like knives, and fell on Tang Xia's hand holding the drawstring. She can't even breathe. Fortunately, Han Yu didn't stand for too long, and after a while, he turned and left. Tang Xia let out a heavy breath. The bell for self-study in the afternoon rang, and the students who were watching outside had to disperse. When the head teacher entered the door, he said strangely, "Why do you draw the curtains in broad daylight and close them?" Tang Xia didn't say a word, and silently closed the curtains again. Han Yu's expression just now seemed a little angry. Tao Jiakai whispered. "I don't want him to stare at Gu Qing all the time," Tang Xia replied with lingering fear while doing his homework. "It's not like you haven't heard what they're talking about." "That's right," Tao Jiakai nodded, "it's too much, talking nonsense about things that don't exist at all." Tang Xia looked back secretly. Gu Qing was writing seriously. It seemed that his emotions were not affected. She was slightly relieved. But Tang Xia, since it's fake, why did Han Yu stare at Gu Qing for so long? I always feel a bit ambiguous. Tao Jiakai's voice became smaller and smaller. Tang Xia was stunned, she bit her pen, and finally shook her head. Have no idea. No one knew why Han Yu was looking at a girl so seriously. After all, no one would think that Han Yu was thinking about whether he knew this girl or not. Tang Xia thought that this was the end of the matter, but she didn't expect that the rumors spread in every corner of the campus at a speed she hadn't expected. And extremely crazy. Han Yu's affectionate look at the door of Class 10 at noon on Monday made almost all the girls in the school turn their attention to Gu Qing. The flow of people between classes no longer poured into the canteen, but all gathered in the aisle outside Class 10. The timid one pointed at Gu Qing through the window. The courageous ones ran into the classroom directly, saying that they wanted to meet Gu Qing. The students in Class 10 were still very united. The boys blocked the door and pushed waves of people out. The girls, like Tang Xia, put down all the curtains and comforted Gu Qing from time to time. The squad leader couldn't bear it anymore and ran to tell the class teacher. The homeroom teacher shouted away the onlookers, but called Gu Qing into the office. Not only Class 10, but the entire second grade, and even the school, had a prelude to turmoil. Gu Qing came back with red eyes. The girls in the front row exchanged glances with each other, and didn't dare to go over to ask about the situation. Tang Xia had a very bad premonition. One day later, Zhao Huan appeared at the door of Class 10. She had a calm expression and didn't speak, just leaning against the edge of the door, followed by the two girls Tang Xia met last week. The students subconsciously turned their attention to Gu Qing. Zhao Huan sneered and left. Gu Qing's face was a little pale, and there was no answer to the power problem on the paper. During lunch, Tang Xia was listless and had no appetite. Do you think Zhao Huan will make trouble for Gu Qing? Like what he did to Chu Sisi last time. Tao Jiakai said in a worried tone as he picked up his meal. Yu Man sighed. Obviously, they all came to our class just now, she said as she tapped Tang Xia's dinner plate with her chopsticks. I have to find a way, I can't sit still and wait for death. The key is that Guqing is holding back in her heart and won't tell us. Tang Xia's headache is this. Now the homeroom teacher has learned something about the situation, and heard that Zhao Huan was severely warned because of the toilet incident last time. If she wants to take the college entrance examination next year, then she can't cause trouble. So what Tang Xia hopes to solve first is Guqing's emotional problems. Yes, I ate all the meals alone. Tao Jiakai said quietly. The next day, Guqing asked for leave. Looking at the empty seats, Tang Xia took the weekly physics exam paper handed by the monitor. 92 points. Only 2 points above the passing mark. Before she could sigh, the monitor handed over another test paper. Guqing's, you can put it on the table for her. Oh. Tang Xia nodded, and glanced at it while taking it. 87 points. Tang Xia was shocked. Did the physics class rep fail the physics exam? Gently folding up the test paper, Tang Xia stuffed it into Guqing's desk drawer. What has she been through the past few days? Tang Xia didn't see Guqing for 2 days, and when she came to class, it was already Friday. Tang Xia actually had no physics homework to copy that morning, but for some reason, she couldn't find something to chat with, so she forced herself to smile. Guqing, can you borrow me to copy your homework? Guqing still wears a neat ponytail, and his forehead is smooth, just like before. I'm sorry, Tang Xia, she raised her eyes. Her eyes were black and blue, and she was very haggard. I didn't do it. Guqing's voice was hoarse, which made people feel distressed. Tang Xia froze for a moment, then thought that she just came to school, and it was normal that she didn't do her homework. Fine. After she finished speaking, she wanted to chat a few more words, but Guqing had already lowered her head, and was quietly rehearsing her English practice. Tang Xia silently closed her mouth, feeling empty in her heart. In the last class, the teacher talked about the number sequence impassionedly, and the students below secretly packed their school bags, and when the get-out-of-class bell rang, they threw themselves into the warm embrace of the weekend. Tang Xia reached into the drawer and touched the birthday present that was going to be given to Guqing later. I really hope that Guqing can get rid of the influence of troubles as soon as possible, and return to the self-confident, proud and free-spirited her before. After the teacher introduced the last problem-solving method, he walked away with unfinished steps. The class became lively in an instant. Tang Xia gestured at Yu Man, turned around, and before he had time to call Guqing, he saw the latter put his school bag on his back and left in a hurry through the back door. Guqing! Tang Xia became anxious, jumped up from his seat, and chased him out of the classroom. But Guqing didn't stop in his footsteps, and even trotted, disappeared from Tang Xia's sight, and left the school gate in an instant. Yu Man was carrying the gift bag, and lay on Tang Xia's shoulder in disappointment. It was prepared a week earlier, but it still couldn't be delivered today. Tang Xia pursed her lips, the uneasiness in her heart that lasted for a week suddenly intensified. That night. Hello, the number you dialed is temporarily unanswered, please try again later. Sorry. Tang Xia threw away her mobile phone, lay down on the bed weakly, and buried her face deeply in the bed. She made at least 17 or 8 phone calls, but Guqing never answered. Tang Xia thought about it quietly for a while, then shifted her gaze from the phone to the delicate gift bag on the desk. She sat up again, biting her lower lip while thinking, while slowly editing the text message. Tang Xia thought about the content of the text message for a long time, but when it was time to send it, it was still deleted until only 2 sentences remained. Guqing, happy birthday. Be happy, no matter what happens, we will be with you. Seeing that the text message was successfully sent before 0 o'clock, Tang Xia breathed a sigh of relief, turned off the light and got under the covers, pinching the phone and waiting for Gu Qing to reply. Even just a thank you is fine. At least reassure her. But Tang Xia accidentally fell asleep, and accidentally fell asleep until nearly 11 noon. Hurriedly, he took out his cell phone from under the quilt, and his disappointment and worry flooded in like a flood. Gu Qing did not reply to the text message. Tang Xia didn't have Gu Qing's address, so she could only rub her eyes and hurriedly leave messages to her on various social software. But Tang Xia saw that Gu Qing's QQ profile picture was grey, and the last post was a week ago. With all kinds of guesses in mind, Tang Xia brushed her teeth, washed her face, ate, and absent-mindedly did her day's homework. Until Sunday afternoon, Tang Xia made a total of 33 calls to Gu Qing, sent 8 text messages, and left 14 messages. For the first time in her life she longed for Monday. Xiao Xia, Dad is out shopping, what would you like for dinner? Tang's Hai knocked on the door and came in. Tang Xia put down her pen, Dad, let's go together, I want to relax. Tang's Hai nodded, let's go, we should take a break, it's not good to be bored doing homework all day long. Tang Xia closed the book, put on her environmental bag, changed her shoes, and followed her father out. There is a large supermarket near the community. The father and daughter picked some vegetables and fish in the supermarket without going far. While Tang's Hai was looking at the fruit, Tang Xia ran aside and picked up instant food. I had several meals of tomato beef brisket noodles last week, so I needed a change. Tang Xia wandered back and forth, then went to the refrigerated area to buy yogurt to nourish her stomach. As soon as she turned the corner, she stood still. The teenager had shed his drab school uniform for a simple black pullover. The sweater has a high collar, and it fits softly against his clean chin, making the skin rendered white and delicate by the lights of the supermarket. He is picking yogurt. Holding a bottle in one hand, the fingertips are like shell jade, exquisite and translucent. For some reason, Tang Xia didn't plan to say hello. But before she left, Han Yu seemed to feel the prying eyes and turned around slowly. He was only a few meters away from her. Tang Xia was extremely embarrassed, and said something in a low voice. Hi. Han Yu didn't answer. Tang Xia wondered if she would be rude if she walked away now. The 10th class. I don't know if it's an illusion, Tang Xia felt that Han Yu's tone was mixed with the uncomfortable air conditioning in the cold storage area, right? He probably remembered her drawing the curtains. Oh, Han Yu said indifferently, and finally looked at Tang Xia again, and slowly bent the corners of his lips. I remember you, when you were silent last time. Tang Xia was taken aback, caught off guard by Han Yu's words. God remembers this? Of course, Tang Xia's shock didn't last for a few seconds. And Monday at noon. Han Yu faintly spit out the next sentence. Tang Xia doesn't consider politeness or impoliteness anymore, the male should watch from a distance, don't try to get to know each other. It was only after Tang Xia went back that day that she realized that she should ask Han Yu about Chu Sisi and Gu Qing. But she also felt that according to Han Yu's temperament, maybe he wouldn't answer at all. He's pretty aloof. Tang Xia helped out in the kitchen. After eating, she took the initiative to wash the dishes and wipe the table. After everything was settled, she took a shower and dried her hair. It was almost 9 o'clock when she returned to the bedroom. She nestled in the computer chair and circled slowly, while calculating the last 2 exercises. She reached out and unplugged the charging phone. The phone screen immediately lit up, showing 2 missed calls. The signature is Gu Qing. Depend on. Tang Xia bounced up in an instant, and was so surprised that she burst out with a foul language. Caller ID is 4 hours ago and 2 hours ago. She is in the supermarket. She is in the bathroom. Tang Xia dropped the pen and quickly pressed the callback. Hearing the long sound of beep 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 in her ear, she became nervous for no reason, her hands were numb, and she was sweating profusely. 10 seconds later. A familiar but unfamiliar voice from Gu Qing came from the other end of the phone. Tang Xia. The girl's usual bright and clear tone was nasal, hoarse, dry, and cautious. Tang Xia's whole heart trembled. Gu Qing, are you crying? She squeezed the phone tightly, with an undisguised anxiety in her tone. Tang Xia, I don't know what to do. Gu Qing over there seemed to be stuffed under the quilt, his voice was very low, his breathing was unsteady, and it made people feel distressed. Tang Xia couldn't stop comforting her. Tell me, what happened? Gu Qing cried hard, his words were slurred, and he kept repeating one sentence. I didn't confess my love to Han Yu, why did Zhao Huan target me? Tang Xiaojun seemed to be thrown into an ice cave all of a sudden, his hands and feet were cold. So, is Zhao Huan still looking for trouble with Gu Qing? Tang Xia gritted her teeth hard. Asshole! Tang Xia, do you know? Last week she kept finding people to block me. Those people are from Qinggong Yuan, I'm afraid. Gu Qing's mood calmed down a little, but he still couldn't stop sobbing. Tang Xia took a deep breath. Qinggong Yuan is a famous vocational school in their place, and the inside is in disarray, like a small society. Did they bully, beat you? Tang Xia asked, pinching the phone more and more. No, Gu Qing sniffed, but I'm really afraid. After she finished speaking, Tang Xia couldn't hold back, and Tang Xia heard the grievance and fear she tried to suppress through the phone. Those scumbags from Qinggong Yuan must have threatened or warned Gu Qing. Tang Xia was so angry that her whole body was shaking. Tang Xia, I really can't help it, Zhao Huan didn't believe me, but said that I was provoking her on purpose. After school the day before yesterday, she said she would look after me next week. Tang Xia, help me, help me. Gu Qing's helpless crying made Tang Xia suddenly think of her 10 days ago. Her smile at that moment was so beautiful. Don't be afraid, Tang Xia comforted her, pursing her lips and thinking, hang up first, I'll call you later. Don't cry, okay Gu Qing, it's okay, I will help you. After hanging up the phone, Tang Xia sat in a daze for 5 minutes. Zhao Huan didn't dare to cause trouble again, so he found someone from another school. It's really shameless and hateful. But there is one thing Tang Xia can't figure out. Gu Qing really liked Han Yu, but he never said that he would confess or even pursue him. Why did this rumor spread inexplicably after Chu Sisi happened? Was it an accident? Or, was it done by someone with a heart? Tang Xia's heart sank. She was terrified, feeling that these were not important for the time being. The most important thing right now is to solve the harassment of Gu Qing by Zhao Huan and the people from Qinggong Yuan. Tang Xia dialed a number and went out. The other party quickly picked up. Xiao Xia. It is a male voice, lazy, as if not awake. Brother, Tang Xia knew that Tang Xian was playing a game when she saw this point. Don't turn on the speakerphone, I have something very important to tell you. Probably startled by Tang Xia's serious tone, Tang Xian was silent for a moment, and said, wait a minute. It is good. Tang Xia heard the noise in the boys' dormitory over there, as well as the sound of clicking the mouse quickly. A moment later, Tang Xian's clean and magnetic voice came. What's wrong? Tang Xia lowered her voice, briefly and quickly summed up what happened to Gu Qing, and then said, brother, when you were in number 1 middle school, did you know anyone who was good enough? Please help my classmate. Tang Xian leaned on the balcony, and finally smiled, that's it. I thought it was urgent. He paused, and then confessed, let your classmate prepare 500 yuan, and I will let Tan Xiao go to your class tomorrow. Tan Xiao. Tang Xia was taken aback, surprised, is that Tan Xiao from the 3rd year of high school? Well, Tang Xian responded, but suddenly said in a serious tone, Xiao Xia, brother will help you with this matter, you just need to tell your classmates what brother said just now, don't worry about the rest. What's the meaning? It's nothing interesting. Ask that girl to give Tan Xiao the money, and call her brother. This matter is Tan Xiao and Zhao Huan's. Don't get into troubled waters, and don't let Zhao Huan know that you found Tan Xiao somehow. Take it out by yourself, you know. Tang Xia understood, her brother was worried about her. No. Hey, brother, call Tan Xiao now, you go to bed early, don't think too much. Well, you go to bed early too, don't play games all the time. Tang Xian smiled lowly, the smile turned warm. Okay, good night. The next day. Black Monday, which students hate the most, is here. Tang Xia was the first to arrive at the classroom that day. Gu Qing is the second. Tang Xia. Gu Qing lost a lot of weight, her chin was pointed, and her dark circles were obvious. Tang Xia hugged her lightly. It's okay, when Tan Xiao comes, you give him the money and call brother, Zhao Huan will definitely not dare to come again. Tan Xiao is a celebrity in number 1 middle school. If Zhao Huan is the eldest sister in the 3rd year of high school, then Tan Xiao is the eldest brother among all the gangsters in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd years. In the rumors the campus is responsible. When Tang Xia first entered number 1 middle school, Tang Xian was still in her 3rd year of high school. She knew that her brother knew a lot of people, but that was the only way she knew that he had a relationship with Tan Xiao. Will Tan Xiao really help me? Even though Gu Qing looks tough, like a man, he is a girl after all. Encountered such a thing, in the final analysis or will be afraid of helplessness. Tang Xia nodded resolutely, I will, don't worry. She had met Tan Xiao twice in school, and she was so powerful that it made people afraid. Zhao Huan would never dare to provoke him. That day, Tang Xia and Gu Qing spent the whole morning worrying about their hearts, feeling a little nervous. Until lunch break. Tan Xiao came. He also brought a group of brothers around him, and the formation was huge. Which Gu Qing? He is really tall and tall, more than 1.85 meters tall, with a cut hair, light honey-colored skin, and a pair of sharp and provocative eyebrows, which set off the half-squinted eyes, which also have a sharp taste for no reason. The students in class 10 immediately cast their eyes on Gu Qing. Doubt, shock, speculation, dazed. The emotions leaked from the bottom of everyone's eyes are different. Tang Xia coughed softly, and pulled the dumbfounded Gu Qing back to his consciousness. Elder brother. Gu Qing walked slowly to the door with difficult steps. She didn't dare to raise her eyes, she bit her lower lip tightly, her face flushed red, and she choked out a word. Can't tell what it feels like. Just like. It was as if she had lowered her proud stance, lingering on her last breath. Yet. Tan Xiao turned his head to look at Gu Qing, expressionless. Gu Qing couldn't help trembling at the lazy but extremely low reply above his head, and immediately took out a stack of red bills from his pocket. According to what Tang Xia said, she prepared 500 yuan in cash. A lot of onlookers had already gathered outside, and the discussion gradually started. Yu Man's eyes widened, and she walked up to Tang Xiao's side and asked in surprise, Gu Qing still knows Tan Xiao. After she finished speaking, she glanced and saw Qin Yuan among the boys standing behind Tan Xiao. Damn it! Yu Man squeezed Tang Xiao's arm hard, I'm a god. She stared at him, wondering why there is such a manly boy as Qin Yuan in the world, which makes people so greedy. Tang Xia is not in the mood to talk to Yu Man now, and just stares closely at the front. Tan Xiao took the money that Gu Qing handed over, and then slowly glanced at the students in class 10, then turned around, cleared his throat, and said to everyone watching the excitement, Tan Xiao, recognized a younger sister today, and she is the only one, Gu Qing. The audience was in an uproar. Tan Xiao patted the shoulder of Qin Yuan who was closest to him, let's go, brother after school, treat me to dinner. He curled his lips into a gruff smile. Qin Yuan thumped him and waved his hand back. A group of people waddled away. That afternoon, the news that Tan Xiao accepted Gu Qing as his younger sister spread throughout the school. This was like slapping Zhao Huan across the face. Everyone was discussing this matter in private, and the news naturally reached Zhao Huan's ears. Her complexion was very ugly, especially before school. Tan Xiao made a special trip to class 38 of high school. That Gu Qing, a sophomore in high school, is now my younger sister. Tan Xiao casually said as he leaned against the balcony in the corridor. Zhao Huan nodded and said coldly, I know. Tan Xiao glanced at her, but he was not angry, he just smiled and said, to save face, I'll treat you to dinner another day. He still knew Zhao Huan well, and he got along well and knew many people. But after all, she is a bitch, so she still dare not fight with him. Tan Xiao patted his head, and put the half-drunk drink on the balcony in front of class 8. Gone. With his hands in his trouser pockets, his back is chic. Zhao Huan raised his eyes were fierce. It is no longer Gu Qing's problem. After Tan Xiao made trouble for Gu Qing, he openly recognized Gu Qing as his younger sister, clearly embarrassing her for Zhao Huan. Saying this, does she still have face? Do you want to hang out? Zhao Huan knocked over the drink left by Tan Xiao on the ground with his hands, and the tin can made a crisp and piercing sound, making people's heart palpitate. She snorted coldly, and majestically took out her mobile phone from her pocket, not afraid of being seen by the teacher at all. Brother, help me call someone, next Friday behind my school, do it. Guys, you can figure it out, whatever you want. After hanging up the phone, Zhao Huan stroked his hair and entered the classroom. On the other side, Tang Xia, who thought she could finally help Gu Qing solve her worries, didn't know that it was always a model school in the city and was about to face a storm. Don't think about it, it's all over. Tang Xia sat beside Gu Qing, comforting her in a low voice. Yu Man responded repeatedly, yes, it's over, be happy. She took out the gift that she didn't have time to send out last week, here, a late birthday present. Gu Qing was taken aback for a moment, then smiled. Thanks. Tao Jiakai sighed as if relieved. You're finally smiling, thank goodness. Tang Xia also laughed, feeling that the haze of the past few days had been swept away. So. Very nice. The only embarrassing thing is that Tang Xia was too busy trying to find a way for Gu Qing the night before, so she didn't have time to memorize English. Then the English teacher was busy correcting homework at noon on Monday and didn't organize silence, so Tang Xia was honorably invited into the office again today. She remembered bragging to Han Yu last time that she would never repeat her silence again. Tang Xia sighed, resigned to his fate, and punished him for copying on the balcony. Still with the cold wind. After she copied for about 5 minutes, she glanced out of the corner of her eye and saw someone next to them also put down the dictation paper. Tang Xia trembled, feeling a great sense of uneasiness. No way! What a coincidence! The word juvenile is indifferent, but it made Tang Xia's eyes shine with gold stars, and his heart was as heavy as 1,000 pounds. She laughed twice, moved aside without leaving a trace, and then said, yes, what a coincidence. Han Yu lazily rolled his eyelids and stopped talking. Tang Xia inadvertently saw that Han Yu silently wrote the dazzling 35 points on the paper. Okay. The male god's English is getting worse and worse. The north wind blows wantonly, and the coolness invades the bone marrow. Han Yu's character is flamboyant and ugly, which is the complete opposite of his handsome appearance. But there are advantages to writing ugly, that is, the speed is fast. When he finished writing, Tang Xia was still copying the last word. Wait and write silently for me. Han Yu tilted his head slightly to see that her cheeks had a soft curvature, her fingertips were like jade, and her brushwork was full of flowers. Tang Xia held the pen, and her writing movement paused. He didn't use a discussing tone this time. Tang Xia slowly raised her head. For some reason, the question that she thought was buried deep but still lingering came to her mind again. Last time, why didn't you help Chu Sisi? She hesitated, but still asked. Han Yu frowned, folded the dictation paper and put it in his pocket, inserting his hand along the way. Who is Chu Sisi? Tang Ziyi explained helplessly, the girl who confessed to you is a freshman in high school. After finishing speaking, she felt that it was not enough, and added, when Zhao Huan bullied her, you were there. In fact, as long as you say a word, she will. Why should I help her? Han Yu interrupted. Tang Xia froze, as if shocked by his directness. She came to confess to me, isn't it me who is the victim? Why do you want me to help her? Han Yu continued. Tang Xia took a deep breath, okay, then I'll ask you another question. Han Yu's expression was a little displeased, and his brows were furrowed impatiently. Where's Gu Qing? She hasn't confessed to you, has she? Then when Zhao Huan targeted her, why couldn't you explain it? In fact, Tang Xia's so-called help just wanted Han Yu to explain something clearly. Rumors are more and more terrible, unless someone can stop them. And that person must be Han Yu. Han Yu's tone became cold. Who is Zhao Huan targeting, and what does it have to do with me? Tang Xia pinched the pen fiercely, suddenly a little angry. All you have to do is explain. Her words were interrupted by Han Yu again. I don't know her, am I obliged to help her? A disgusted and mocking expression appeared on the young man's face, so dazzling. Okay. Tang Xia smiled angrily. Did he know that what they tried their best to solve, he could resolve it with one word? Did he know that his indifference to each other condensed the two girls into panic for many nights? If you're done asking, go in and write silently. Han Yu was afraid that he would be chilled by the wind, so he wanted to enter the office. Tang Xia looked at him, it was the first time he was so fearless and arrogant. I don't know you, so I have no obligation to help you when I'm silent.